Peace, y'all. I know y'all haven't seen me on YouTube in a minute, other than my animation videos and some clips from the Enslaved series that I've been posting. But I wanted to just go live for a little bit, just to check in with all of you. And this is a live chat as well. So if you have any questions about different topics, and I may be able to answer that for you or direct you to somewhere that question could be actually answered. So to start, today is the 14th. So in our supreme mathematics, that's knowledge culture. One represents knowledge, four represents culture, and knowledge culture borns power. Or the same way that one and four equals five, knowledge and culture equals power. When we talk about knowledge culture, in part, it means that it's important to be aware of your way of life. And when I say way of life or culture, I'm talking about the sum total of all your people activities. Every single thing that encompasses our life is a part of our culture, whether we are aware of those things or not. And knowledge culture is an emphasis on us being self aware, being conscious of the way in which we live. Now, how does that relate to power? Power is influence, it's also control. So, the more aware that we are of our way of life or our people activities, the more we put ourselves in a position of seat of power where we have more control over the way in which we live. So, knowledge culture is primarily a self diagnostic, or it's a self analysis. It's the ability to be aware, conscious of how we actually live. And it is through that awareness that we ascertain a sense of self control, or we ascertain a sense of understanding our influence, not only just upon ourselves, but our influence interpersonally when it comes to dealing with other people, as well as being in different environments. Why is all of that important? When you look at classical civilizations, you look at our indigenous societies, one of the things that we learned from living a long time is we have to be able to create techniques to encourage our human family members to have a sense of mind over matter. What does that mean? When you think about practices or techniques like fasting, you think about techniques like yoga or combative arts or other different things that we've developed over time. These techniques were used to teach us a sense of self control, a sense of sobriety, a sense of recognizing our own influence in terms of mind mastering matter. When you get into some of the other different sciences of life, you also learn that this is really the basis of alchemy. When you take this philosopher's stone or this baser metal and fashion it into gold, or it becomes a higher element. That's exactly the same process that we go through learning these various techniques that we've taught to the human family since classical civilization and a lot of our indigenous societies. Um, Knowledge culture is a never ending inner journey. It's an internal process primarily. And the more we learn to be aware of the things that we do and how we live, we ascertain power, not only control over ourselves, but our ability to be aligned with others in terms of interpersonal relationships and to have a healthier relationship with our environment. When you just look at yourself, for example, or you look at others, the degree of their inability to control themselves, their appetite, their urges, people who have fallen victim to various different types of addictions, whether that addiction is sex, whether that addiction is alcohol, or it could be food, it could be a certain type of food. The degree of a person's attachment and inability to control those particular desires or habits or urges is equal to their inability to control other things that are going on outside of them or in their life. If you just take a cursory glance and look at social media, one of the things that you see all the time is with social economic engineering. You have media companies who can deliberately use target words, buzzwords, keywords to trigger people. You see it all the time. You see certain headlines being shared all throughout social media. As soon as a person sees it, they're triggered. They automatically react. They don't respond. They react. And there's a difference between reaction and responding. Reaction is based upon the physicality. It's based upon a neurotic approach towards phenomena. Responding deals with the conscience or the consciousness. It's a different approach towards dealing with phenomena. So when you look at social media, people who deal with marketing and promotion, and they're in these different media companies, they are very good at using keywords, creating headlines or clickbait in order to trigger people, in order to make people react, right? Sometimes I experience that. I see something and I feel a certain way about what I see. But because I've learned to discipline myself and have a sense of self-control, I don't automatically just react to everything that I see. I respond to it. I take it through a process of critical, analytical awareness, and don't just react to that in a neurological type of way. You know? So when we're talking about knowledge culture being connected to power, knowledge being awareness or consciousness, it is primarily important for us to be more conscious or more aware of our way of life, and to analyze the things that we do and say, because it's going to be connected to not only the different influences that we allow into our life, but we also learn how to align ourselves with the environment, as well as develop interpersonal relationships with others, because we have a sense of self-control, you know. And if you just look at what's been going on, especially through this pandemic, people are out of control. People are out of control. And if there are not certain techniques in place or people learning ways to control themselves, then it's going to be very difficult to have healthy relationships with the environment or with other people. Now, one of the differences you see in the Eastern Hemisphere and in the Western Hemisphere is in the East, traditionally or customarily, we develop these natural techniques to learn mind over matter. Like I mentioned, meditation, fasting, yoga, various different techniques that we developed. When you get to the West, these techniques weren't developed here. You know, you see a lot of Westerners getting involved in this Eastern tradition nowadays, and they call it New Age, because they never evolved to the point of discovering that you can utilize these techniques for mind to be able to master matter. The emphasis in the Western Hemisphere is on the pharmaceutical approach towards mind mastering matter. So instead of a person having a sense of developing that sobriety or sense of self-control, they can just prescribe you a pill that will chemically put you in a straitjacket. They'll prescribe you a pill for this. They prescribe you a pill for that. So it doesn't encourage the sense of self-control that's necessary for you to elevate that awareness to be a part of your natural way of life where you can actually ascertain real power. Peace to all the true and living gods and nurse, the baby, and civilized righteous, and the rest of the chat as well. Peace, y'all. Yeah, so when you take power, which is the number 5, you take it into one of our lessons in the 1 to 14s. It asks the question, why did we take Jerusalem from the devil and how long ago? And the answer is because one of our righteous brothers, who was a prophet by the name of Jesus, was buried there. They used his name to shield the dirty religion, which is called Christianity, also to deceive the people so that they will believe in them. Jesus' teachings were not Christianity, they were freedom, justice, and equality. Jerusalem is in Palestine, Asia Minor. Jerusalem is a name given by the Jews, means founded in peace, and was built first by the original man by the name of Jerusalem and Ariel. We took this city from the devil about 750 years ago. So how does this lesson relate to what I'm talking about? When you look at that lesson about taking Jerusalem from the devil, that highlights a time period or an era known as the Crusades. So when you look at the definition of crusade, it means a fight, a battle. When you look at the origin of the word Jerusalem, it simply means founded in peace, right? So when you study the Crusades, you also come across the name Saladin. That's where I actually got my righteous name from, studying that particular era and seeing the technique that was used by the king Saladin at the time. And I could actually see myself in that. So I chose that name as a representation of a part of my culture or a part of my way of life, right? So one of the things that you will learn about studying that Crusades is a battle or fighting for something, especially peace, requires specific techniques that enables you to be able to maintain that peace, right? In anything in life, sometimes it may be easy to get it, but the question is, are you capable of keeping it, right? So that lesson about taking Jerusalem from the devil, studying the Crusades, one of the things that you learn just in life, period, is anytime you're striving to establish a level of peace, especially in the type of society that we live in, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a crusade. It's going to be a fight. First and foremost, it's going to be an internal fight. And that internal fight is half of the battle. So just think about it for a minute. Looking on the outside of yourself and different things that you may have struggled with externally. When you were able to reconcile that and gain a sense of self-control over those things, that had no effect on you at all. It had no power over you. Think about interacting with different people in social media, where certain things were so-called triggering to you. A person used a certain keyword, or you see a certain headline, and now you in your feelings. Think about evolving to the point where now you have a sense of self-control where that doesn't even affect you anymore. You see it and it's like, yeah, whatever. You see somebody posting this, you see somebody posting that, you don't feel compelled to comment. But that battle, that fight, that crusade first took place within. You had to get right with yourself within and reconcile that in your own mind before you were able to actually engage that externally, right? So Jerusalem, if you look at Jerusalem just geographically, that area is known as the Middle East. That part of the planet is like the solar plexus of the planet, right? You look at your physical body, your solar plexus, or the central part of your body, is considered your seat of power. That is why that solar plex area or that seat of power is oftentimes referred to as where your constitution is, right? Where your fortitude is, where your integrity is. Even when you're looking at it in terms of the chakras, this central part of your body is considered your seat of power. When you play basketball or if you are in wrestling, one of the things that you're taught in terms of being a defender is no matter how nice a person's handle is, you have to watch the center part of their body because they can't fake you out if you're able to watch the center part of their body, the solar plex area. Same thing with wrestling or martial arts. In order to defeat an opponent, you have to be able to master the central part of their body. If you're able to control or manipulate, you look at jujitsu, you look at wrestling, if you're able to control or manipulate the solar plex area or the central part of a person, you can master them. So even when you think about some of those different techniques that we've taught the human family since classical civilization, a lot of our indigenous societies, one of the things that you'll notice is a lot of the focus on those particular techniques deals with strengthening the core, the solar plexus area. Solar meaning central or of the sun, that all things revolve around. That's important and it's key. So those of you who are working out or striving to get in shape and things like that, if you focus on the core, everything else begins to fall in place when you're able to master that central aspect of who and what you actually are. Think about where the seat of your appetite is, your core. Think about being able to control your sexual urges or anything like that, your core. A person would not be good in yoga if they didn't have a strong core. They wouldn't be good in martial arts or any of these other different things if they didn't have a strong core. Right? So I say that to say, when you look at Jerusalem, one of the reasons why that whole area, that equatorial place, has been considered a hot spot since the dawn of man is because it represents the solar plexus or the central area of the planet. And if you have a sense of control over that aspect of the planet, the same way if you have that sense of control over yourself, that core, then it gives you access to be able to master or to control other different aspects of that planet. It's the exact same thing. Peace, are you familiar with Big U? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Yeah. True, the pelvis hip area is the biggest binge in your body. True indeed. Yeah, so that lesson in terms of taking Jerusalem from the devil and the power degree and what it actually symbolizes, when you look at that chronologically, when you look at that historical time period, you're also learning techniques of mastery, of being able to ascertain peace in a place that doesn't promote peace. And that's something that's important for us to understand in every aspect in life, right? So it's not just talking about something that happened historically. It's also talking about something that is happening each and every day, just in our way of life. So you look at power, right, which is the number 5. You could break it down in those 2 components that I talked about earlier. Knowledge, culture. That's the number 14. If you take that 14 to one of our lessons in the 1 to 14 is what does it mean in the MGT and GCC? It says Muslim Girl Training General Civilization Class. These are the names given to the girls and women that belong to Islam in North America, teaching them how to keep a home, how to raise their children, how to keep a husband, sew and cook, and in general, how to act at home and abroad. These training units were named by Prophet W.D. Farad. They were set up by W.D. Farad. So that lesson in terms of knowledge culture talks about customs and traditions that are more specific to a woman being able to master her particular powers. Because if you look at that lesson, how to keep a home, how to raise children, how to keep a husband, sew and cook, in general, how to act at home and abroad, that is also something that is symbolic to the planet Earth. Because it is through the planet Earth that we also know how to keep a home. Through the planet Earth, where we are able to raise our children and to maintain relationships and to know appropriately how to navigate the planet in terms of how to act or behave at home as well as abroad. So MDT and GCC gives you 2 different perspectives. One is talking about training units, and the other things are talking about general civilization class. So Muslim Girl Training, general civilization class. The difference is you have training and you have general civilization, right? Training is dealing more with specifics. So if you look at just a train period, in order for a train to function, not only must it have an engine, but it has to be on a track. There's something very specific about a train being able to maintain a certain journey in terms of being on track, right? General civilization doesn't emphasize that. General civilization is more of the approach of meeting people where they are. Civilization meaning one having knowledge, wisdom, understanding, culture, refinement, and is not a savage in the pursuit of happiness. So in terms of dealing with general civilization, you meet people where they are. It's not a specific training unit that someone has agreed to be a part of in order to learn. So that is important to understand, because in our life, you don't just simply have to be a woman, but in our life, just as a human being, we have to be conscious and aware in terms of our own growth and development, going back to what I was talking about in terms of knowledge culture. What things in my life requires training units as opposed to things that I'm good at learning and developing just through general civilization, that I can learn just generally speaking, and I have a kind of grasp on that. Other things may need specific training units. Those are things that may be more difficult for us to be able to master. Some of y'all that's sitting here watching me, you might think, yo, he's been a public speaker all of his life. I've never been a public speaker all of my life. I've always been a person that is a few words. I've never been the type of person that's like, I'm going to walk in the room and be the leader or something like that. I was always encouraged to take positions like that based upon my character and the things that I actually do. I was never the type of person that just walks into a room and I'm going to be the keynote speaker. I had to learn to develop those particular qualities and characteristics just through the nature of the things that I do, through training units, right? There's other different things that I do that are more general civilization, things that come a lot more natural to me. But in terms of specific things such as that, public speaking and other different things that you see me doing, I've had to learn to do that. I've had to invest time, and I continually invest time in learning to do certain things because it doesn't come as natural to me, right? And that brings me to another point. Knowledge culture, or being aware of our way of life, the sum total of all of our people activities, also requires us to recognize things that come natural as opposed to things that may come with difficulty. Now, here's the problem a lot of times that a lot of us run into, and it simply has to do with how we perceive these challenges. Some people look at things that come natural to them or easy to them as that's me. That's just what I do. And the things that don't come natural or that come with difficulty, many of us just sit there and say, I can't do that. That ain't me. Or I'm just a Leo. I'm just a Virgo, right? So they put themselves in this astrological box or this conceptual prison house. They build a prison house around themselves and limit their ability to actually express the infinite potential, which is beyond that zodiac sign, which is beyond that difficulty, right? So all of us come into this world with a certain leaning. Certain things come natural and easy, but other things we just simply have to work at, right? And in understanding that, it requires us to invest certain time in the training units that are necessary to develop those different qualities that don't come as easy or natural. So in terms of like my temperament, I have a cold and dry temperament, right? I don't really have a hot temperament by nature. I've had to learn to develop and bring balance with that particular temperament because that is not my natural disposition, right? Other people that's watching right now, you may be on the flip side. You may just be more hot in terms of your temperament, and you need to bring some more coolness or coldness to that to bring some balance. right? So knowledge culture is also being able to distinguish the things that come more natural or easy to us, and then the things that don't come as easy or natural to us, we have to be able to access specific training units in order to develop it. You've heard that before, I'm sure, some of you, about how being able to master some things requires about 10,000 hours of investment. That's similarly to what I'm talking about. You have to invest time to develop certain things. You know what I mean? Um, because ultimately, when we came into this world through the physical form, we were incarnated consciousness. We were incarnated consciousness. So when we talk about knowledge, right? Know the ledge. Knowing the ledge is knowing the limitations that we set for ourselves based upon that awareness or consciousness being put in a zodiac box, or being put in some type of conceptual prison house because we think we can't do certain stuff, or that's just not how I am. Well, the situation may demand you to be a different way. And you're going to have to muster the strength to be assertive if you're not naturally assertive to people, right? Your situation may demand you need to shut up and quit talking so damn much because you always got something to say, right? And a lot of us have talked ourselves out of relationships, out of all kind of opportunities because we don't know how to shut up. And then some people may say, that's just how I am. I got to say something. Okay, well, you're not doing what the situation demands. You're not fully expressing the infinite potential, which is beyond that form. So knowledge culture is also that knowledge, or that knowing the ledge, or being aware of the consciousness that supersedes the limitations that we set for ourselves, and how we express it through our way of life, through our culture. Because if we can assess that and recognize the training units that are necessary to bring balance and to break beyond those mental chains that we put on ourselves, we can ascertain that power. So look at it like this: knowledge, culture, power. 145. Culture is a bridge between awareness or consciousness and the power which gives you the ability to fully express that infinite potential. But you got to go through the culture. You got to access your way of life. You got to critically think about the way that you live and the type of influences that it has on yourself, as well as how it influences the environment, and also how it influences other people that you're connected to, right? So that's just some of the perspectives that you can learn from our supreme mathematics, our lessons 120, and how they relate. You know, it's just really a very practical application in terms of how we live. You know, you could take it up into philosophical ideas and high science and all of this other stuff. You could do all of that, but the true power is in the practical application, the simplicity, and being able to show and prove how this is something that you are actually expressing and living out each and every day. You know, a lot of you haven't seen me on YouTube in a minute in terms of doing videos like this. And I just wanted to come on and just build with y'all briefly. I've kind of changed directions in some of the things that I've been doing, especially with just the oversaturation with a lot of the things that we see online nowadays, right? So does knowing the ledge also coincide with the refinement part of that power so that we can improve on the self-awareness journey? That's peace. True indeed. True indeed. Because here's what happens. When you become aware of something that you need to work on, that you need to improve, refinement is also a synonym for improvement. Refinement also means cultivation. It means to polish, to purify, to develop, to improve upon. So yeah, so refinement is that process of taking what it is that you know, what you've been made aware of, implementing it in your way of life so that now you have a sense of self-control and influence in terms of what it is that you've been made aware of. Now, some people may say, oh, ain't no refinement in power. Power is what it is. And the power is the truth. You can't improve upon the truth. And that's true. And that's true. Pun intended. So truth itself doesn't need or require any kind of refinement. It's the truth. You can't improve upon that. But you need it. You need it. Because we've been living in a society where before we were incarnated consciousness, our parents were taught lies. Their parents were taught lies. So we, so-called being born, or our incarnated consciousness coming into this physical plane on our so-called birth date, we were incarnated consciousness in a form that through our parents are part lies. We've been taught lies since we've been here. So a part of knowledge itself is uncovering the lies and discovering the truth. So that truth doesn't need no refinement. We need it. We need to improve ourselves. We need to develop a better sense of etiquette, because that's also what refinement is. We need to develop more, right? Does knowledge culture give you power to control your culture? Not only does knowledge culture give you the power to control your culture, but it gives you the power to control you. So you being knowledge, you being the one who's expressing and living that culture out. So not only does it give you that sense of control, but it also gives you influence, right? If I didn't live this culture that I'm talking about right now, the 5%, I wouldn't be able to express the things that I'm expressing to all of you. I wouldn't have the capacity to do that. But it shows you I have a sense of control or command, not only over the language, but to share certain things with you in a practical way where you can understand what I'm talking about. Peace, God. I've definitely recognized that certain cultural norms can serve as a prison house when one fails to move beyond past indoctrinations. True indeed, G. El Son, and you know, we encounter that every step of the way. You know what I mean? We deal with that every single day. We have to confront being indoctrinated into the society that's taught us the total opposite of what we essentially are. You have to constantly battle with that. You know, and also that's why it's important to make sure that you fellowship or you have the type of healthy connections with others who are on the same page as you, who can help reinforce the type of worldview that you actually have. Because if you're out here in the world and you don't have people that are aligned with you, you're going to constantly be in conflict. You're going to constantly be dealing with a crusade externally. Going back to what I said about taking Jerusalem from the devil. That crusade is a battle. It's a fight. And the best fights, the best battles are to have them on your own terms. To have them on your own terms. As opposed to being thrown in a battle or a fight and you're not prepared for it. You know? So in terms of fighting battles on your own terms, some of us have heard this from our parents or our elders. Choose your own battles. You know, it's the exact same thing. Because you got to have the energy and be psychologically prepared to be able to face certain stuff. And you don't want to constantly just throw yourself in situations that are draining, because we need you. We need you. Any of you who are dedicated to a path of growth and development and striving to evolve, you become a beacon of light, not only for your family, but also your friends as well as your community members. And we need you. It's important. It's important. But I just wanted to come on for a minute and just build with y'all. Depending upon how my schedule is and making time in my schedule, I might do this a little bit more often, just to check in with y'all in terms of things that I'm doing. And just, and I'm gonna tell y'all, seeing just this oversaturation on social media with everybody that got a platform now, everybody got something to say. It's challenging because you realize that a lot of these issues that we see that's going on in the society, it's not being caused by children. True indeed, Joy. It's not being caused by children. Children are not the ones that have this world turned upside down. It's adults. Adults all the time that, number one, don't get it. And number two, are not connected to youth in a healthy way to help them evolve to become the type of adults that we would like this world to be in the hands of. It's difficult. So the things that you've been seeing me doing like over the last months in terms of the animation series that is specifically made for children, the story time that I've done, the partnership with the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center, some of the clips that I've showed you from the docu-series that I'm in with Samuel L. Jackson and other different things, you really don't see me as much in terms of like this. Because like I said, I wanted to move in a different direction, and sometimes it gets exhausting just dealing with adults a lot, you know what I mean? I really appreciate dealing with youth because I see hope in them. And unfortunately, a lot of us adults, a lot of us have given up. You hear a lot of the kind of conversations that we have and the things that we're posting on social media. It's negative. It's defeating. It's apathetic. You know, and it's some people who think like that have been on that trajectory for a very long time. Yeah. Yeah, Ahmad, if you have Amazon Prime, you can go on the Epix network. You get that free, and you can watch the Enslaved docu-series on there. And it's also going to be airing in Canada. I'm not sure where you're at, but it's also going to be airing on a CBC network in Canada. It just aired on a BBC network Sunday. National Geographic picked it up. So it's going to be in various different countries. So you'll definitely be able to check it out. It's 6 parts. And it's a dynamic docu-series in terms of sharing a lot of information about our journey here in the wilderness, North America. But you know, going back to just, I appreciate, you know, dealing with children because I'm reaching them at a point where they may have only been on that trajectory for 6 years, 7 years, maybe 8, 9 years, right? And giving them access to knowledge of culture also gives them access to a sense of empowerment at that early age in their trajectory, where it's different if you're dealing with somebody in their 30s or 40s or 50s or whatever, because they've already been on a path. It's more unlikely for you to redirect them at that point in their trajectory, as opposed to dealing with the youth, you know? True indeed, Ahmad, I said Amazon Prime. Just go on Amazon Prime and go to the channels where you have the Amazon Video, and then you'll see the Epix network. And you can look through there and watch all of the episodes of Enslaved. But I would that all of y'all have been peace and you know, taking care of yourself, especially through this pandemic, and utilizing this time as a way to deal with a lot of inner work, you know, a lot of inner work to develop yourself and ascertain a sense of infinite potential or power that exists there. You know, this pandemic, the silver lining in it is that it's made a lot of people sit their asses down. Sit their asses down. It has also exposed a lot of people who were creating these false narratives about what they was doing and who they were and all of this other stuff. It's like, well, who and what are you right now? You know? And it's been sobering for a lot of people, sobering for the world. You know, you utilize this to your advantage and take this time to be able to do some inner work. You'll come out of this with much more of a capacity to do some outer work. So, like I said, I just wanted to drop in for a minute, and based upon how I'm looking at my schedule and making time, I may do this, you know, a little bit more often. I don't know how often, but I appreciate all of y'all who's been checking out the things that I've been doing. Also, in this video, I think I included the link to my Atlantis School Renovation Project. If you haven't added on to that project, I appreciate it if you did, as well as share it with your networks, because I ascertained a property here in my city, and I've been converting it into an early childhood learning center and after school program. If you go through my videos and you haven't seen it already, I did a walkthrough with the local cable news so that you can actually see the property and the things that I'm actually doing. So again, I appreciate all of y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day. And if you have any questions, you could always email me at atlantisbuild@gmail.com. And peace. Y'all have a beautiful day.